let me just do a quick introduction. My name's Mark Wheeler. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at a company called Storyblok. We're a mid-sized Austrian-based company, in actual fact. We have about 300 employees, but not a single office around the world. We're 100% remote. And actually, we've been remote since 2018, so well before even COVID sort of started to define that potentially as a business model. I'd like to share with you 4 stories today about, I guess in a way, marketing plays that my teams and I have developed over the last several years, and give you a little bit of background as to how we actually run B2B marketing at Storyblok, but also how I've been running it in some other organizations, more which in just a second. And those 4 stories, I hope, will help many of you, whether you're CMOs or marketing leaders, to think about how you might want to look at running your own marketing organizations. I think they're really predicated on some of the statements that you see here. Whether you're being interviewed as a CMO, or you're attending a board meeting, these are some of the things that frequently come up. Of course, table stakes really aligns with the top item here, which is we have to make sure that we're continuously growing pipeline in order to fuel the business for 6 months, 9 months, 12 months' time. Allied with that, and sometimes in debate with that actually, is building long-term brand equity. Actually, I've got some tips actually as we go through this deck on potentially how you ally those 2 things together. But latterly, one of the things I've definitely been hearing over the last 18 months as a marketing leader is, particularly if you go to a board meeting where you've got private equity shareholders, it's so how are you using AI to drive productivity and cost efficiency? And that often comes up as a table stakes item now as well. Now, the backdrop to the stories that I want to share with you, my own background, I work for these 3 organizations, and of course Storyblok today, and they really were the playgrounds in which I guess I got the opportunity to learn some of these motions. The first one was a company called Nutanix, very successful company today, and back in the last decade, they were the fastest ever company to $1 billion in revenue. Of course, this decade they've been dramatically superseded by all these AI companies that have, like OpenAI, that have got to $1 billion in literally 5 minutes. And then most recently, I went to work for a company called I was CMO at a company called LeanIX. LeanIX, when I joined, had about 500 large enterprise customers. By the time I left, it had 1,300 customers. We'd now tripled the revenue, and we sold the company to SAP in what was probably one of the largest software acquisition transactions in European history, something I'm particularly proud of. And now I couldn't be more proud to actually work for Storyblok. Really, the company redefining the content management category, particularly as we move into the AI search era. More on them a little bit later. But let's carry on the story. So I promised you a conversation around go-to-market alignment, and how does a CMO really start to engineer growth into an organization? And alignment's one of those sort of often overused words, but it is very critical to really driving success in a marketing organization, because as a marketing leader, you need to think beyond the realms of the marketing department itself. You've really got to think about how marketing is fundamentally a key contributor to driving the overall business. Now, there are some things, telltale signs that often I see when I join a marketing team that might indicate to me that we don't really have a go-to-market alignment. For example, very tactical campaigns. So sorry if there are any salespeople in the room, but often what I might hear from sales is, competitor X, something bad's happening to them. Let's run a campaign over the next few weeks or this quarter to drive it. Now, the problem with that, the moment I hear it, is a campaign never lasts a quarter. Never lasts a quarter. In fact, if it lasts a quarter, you know you've already got a problem, because a sales cycle, last I looked, is typically between, well, for us, it's between 90 and 140 days. So quite a little bit longer. And so I'm a strong believer in actually what was back in the day, serious decisions have what's called a campaign hierarchy. And now Forrester, of course, they talk about campaigns lasting at least a year. And for us, actually, our campaigns are coming up about a year, but we will pursue all of our campaigns from year one, and we'll take them into year two. Because when you start to develop campaigns that are at least a minimum of a year in duration, you start to position yourself as a leader. When you start to chop and change your messaging, even mid-sales cycle, you start to confuse customers. So what are you really about? A campaign is not just something to drive immediate revenue. It's a statement of who we are, our principles, our values, what we stand for, and how we're going to help customers to win in a very competitive market. So that's why we tend to think of campaigns in that sort of time frame. Now, associated with this, when you don't have clear campaigns, the sales plays are often mismatched as well. Because if you've got these sort of short-term nicky-nacky campaigns, then the sales plays will often be something completely different. And really, to be in market, you want everything to be sort of saying the same thing at the same time. They've got to be consistency between the pitch that customers are seeing on the website or through our emails or for our advertising, with continuity through their experience and their meeting with the sales reps in those first meetings and throughout the seller's journey as well as the buyer's journey. Allied to that, partner motions tend to also sort of, they tend to position you in a completely different way to the way you would position yourself. And other things that you start to see when you operate this way is sellers are often wasting time chasing low-fit leads. So having things such as a clear ICP has become increasingly one of the most critical sciences, I believe, in marketing. And this last one here actually has become probably, in some ways, issue number one now. Marketing overproduces and underdelivers more content with less impact. And you'll hear from me a little bit later how I'll be expressing how less content now is more. In fact, that is super important. You want to be producing less content. How often have you ever heard that from a marketing leader? And I'll explain why that's so critical at the end of my deck. So with this, I learned that there are some key things that we need to drive to have solid alignment between marketing and the rest of the organization. Importantly, shared personas and a message hierarchy. So who is it in our the customer organization that we sell to? What's important to them? What makes them successful? What's their career agenda? And what are the messages that we want to create? Because we need to have those same conversations, whether it's marketing or the seller engaging in those conversations. Our campaigns need to be a minimum of 12 months in duration, and they need to have clearly defined value. By the way, if you buy this now by the end of December the 31st, only problems. Certainly not in B2B, but it is in consumer, right? Yeah, that works perfectly well in consumer, but B2B, that does not work. And you want reusable content because the content that we do produce is high value. And so you want that leverageable by partners, by sellers, as well as available on our marketing site. And for those and to be able to extend those tools into enablement assets that support the seller's journey. Now, does anybody remember these things? these are panini stickers. When I was a kid, not that I'm into football today, I'm actually into motor racing, but I did have football stickers. I think every kid did, right? And they did Disney ones. Actually, Panini's they're actually a wonderful customer of Storyblok's. We're super pleased to have them. But one of the reasons I put this up is it describes the methodology that we have built to define our ICP. And so I often ask people to think about a Panini sticker book. The great thing about a Panini sticker book is it starts to help you define what you want or what you're missing, right? So imagine a sticker is an account that you already have. So you got that sticker, and you're trying to fill out the stickers. And so when you have clarity over the stickers that you don't have, those are the ones you chase. And it's funny that as kids, as 7 and 8 year olds, we grew habitually good at this, right? It's like, oh my God, I haven't got this player, I've got to get that player. I'm going to swapsies with one of my friends to get one of these players. And we work really hard to get it. Yet when we become older and get into our marketing careers, we're typically starting to market to this broad audience, and we're not chasing the stickers. In our ICP approach, we're just chasing stickers. I don't need leads, I don't need marketing from anybody else unless they are stickers that we need for our sticker book. So I call it the Panini sticker book ICP approach. So by starting with a shared ICP, like a defined account-centric ICP like this, you start to have a robust data set that helps you to start driving your business. Now, allied to that, we also run a very sophisticated lead scoring methodology alongside that helps us to also look at specific elements of profile like revenue, so firmographics and technographics that associate with a specific ICP. Now for us, the way we built out our ICP was we acquired a very significant data set from the leading data company in the world, a company called HD Insights. And we then said to them, look, here are our current customers. And at the time we had about 400 very large enterprise customers, ranging from the largest retailers in the world, the largest manufacturers. And we said, these are our 400 customers. If you were to look at the technographics and the firmographics of those organizations and go and look at all the other companies in the world and score every single company in the world that has closest proximities to some of these aspects or technological aspects technology they may have, who are the other organizations in the world we should be talking to? And they came back and they basically ranked those 4 million organizations and helped us to build a propensity list. And that propensity list is not organizations who are out in market today, it's just that there's a good fit. It's a bit like dating in a way. Do we like the theatre? Oh, I like the theatre. Do you like cinema? Oh, I like the cinema. What about dinner? I like dinner too. So it starts to match aspects of what we are about in the world with the other person or other organisation, if you like. So that was our ICP. We built a high quality, very sophisticated lead scoring mechanism that looks at 15 different aspects before passing a lead to MQL. And then allied to that, we also applied intent data. Now we use one of the leading providers out there for account-based marketing called a company called 6 Sense. Some of you may also use 6 Sense. We use 6 Sense to not only apply our intent data, but we also use it to ally with our marketing spend for performance marketing, such as Google and for LinkedIn. And the great thing about doing that is we essentially say to 6 Sense, these are the stickers that we're looking for, not interested in anything else. So when you run your Google ads or you run your LinkedIn ads, don't bother serving me leads from any other company because I'm just looking for these stickers. And so that's effectively how it all comes together in terms of our ICP. So when we hand off a lead to our sales team, there's no debate, there's no argument. It's a perfect organization, high propensity, and hopefully higher intent as well. Now, as you start to talk to sales leaders, what it starts to produce is something that I think, this iconic image from about a decade ago now. This is of one of my favourite sports I follow, cycling. This is the Tour de France, and the finish on the Champs-Élysées, where all of the team come over the winning line together. And it's a metaphor for how I think about our sales team. Often in sales organisations, you tend to find you've got high-performing sales reps who exceed or meet quota, and you have a number that don't. And so what you're trying to achieve through this approach is you're trying to get as many of your sellers over the 100% line through taking this approach. So I talked about our approach to campaigns. This isn't we actually have 4 campaigns that we run, but this is essentially how we structure it. And we also manage our performance. This is Forrester's, what they call their campaign hierarchy. And so we're able to measure every one of our campaigns at the program level, the channel level, and the tactics. So for us, one of our campaigns is called Legacy. So it's targeting organizations running older monolithic web CMSs and talking about the challenges that they may be facing. And we run various programs, and we run those programs across various channels. We all do. And we use different tactics. And by applying the campaign hierarchy, we're able to assess the performance of our campaigns at any one of those levels. Was it that tactic, or was it that channel that was successful in supporting that campaign? Allied to that, we also leverage our intent data to refine the messaging itself. So let me give you an example. One of those stickers, let's call it Coca-Cola. We want to win Coca-Cola. And we find that Coca-Cola is not really in the market right now to buy a new web CMS. Shame. Actually, good news, they're a customer. But that's just for this example, they're not. And so our messaging would essentially say, well, we notice you're not really in the market for a new CMS right now. Here's 5 reasons why it's probably time for your organisation to think about it. Whereas over here, where they're in high intent, the campaigns are dynamic, and this is all automated and dynamically served, goes, oh, I see you're already well into the market, and you're about to make a decision. Don't make a decision, though, until you've come to chat with Storyblok, and here's 5 reasons why. And so, in fact, you'll see the campaign and the campaign assets are divided across these 5 stages, and all of the campaigns, all of the emails, in fact, for this, we have about 120 different emails, are dynamically adjusted relevant to the buyer's stage that the customer is in. So every one of those organizations we mapped, we also measure their intent, so that when we put a message in front of them, it is related to where they are in their buyer's journey, and it's fully automated. So that's the buyer's journey well sorted. We then have our sales play. So these are the tools we give our sellers, our enablement, to help those individuals to also be successful. And they mirror the campaigns, but they provide assets that support the seller's journey. And so the story that our customers receive is identical to the one they'll see in the ads. It's a continuation of the conversation. The third story that I have in getting a scale-up company to be successful, and I think this is perhaps one of the more important ones in many ways, is the way that we position the company, the way we position the brand. Now we're about a 40 million annual recurring revenue company, middle-sized. There are companies bigger than us, of course, and we of course, many customers, particularly in the US, will buy based on, oh, they're big and successful. We've all heard the adage, no one ever got fired for buying IBM. Was it over the best? Probably not, but no one got fired. So you're often having to compete with that, particularly as a young up-and-comer. And so how you start to shape and position your message with confidence is absolutely critical in basically starting to position yourselves effectively. I often talk about confidence is contagious. When you start to exude energy through your campaigns, through the activities that you internally, it comes across too. And then they start basically repeating that with customers. Yes, we're really good. Oh, really? You want to avoid arrogance, of course, but it's really, this is, again, I think one of the fundamental things that supported the success of those organizations. So I wanted to talk about AI briefly. AI is, wow, is one of the things that's fundamentally changing. It's probably the most impactful thing and disruptive thing that has impacted our jobs in the last year. You probably judge, I've been doing this for a few years, and this, really, I haven't seen anything like this in probably about 20 years. So what's happening? The buyer's journey is fundamentally being disrupted. 59% of web searches today have a zero-click outcome, right? So that's going into Google, I'm looking for Coca-Cola. Now, in the past, we'd go down the page a little bit, see various things, and we'd click one of those little blue links. That isn't happening anymore. 33% of Google queries don't even offer that list anymore. They provide an AI overview. And Gartner estimates that 50% of our organic web traffic will have disappeared in the next 3 years. So our website, which has been, and our digital marketing, which has been probably one of the most important tools that we've been using in the past 2 decades, it's evaporating. And why? Because people are starting their buyer's journey with AI search. AI engines aren't giving me a list, they're giving me answers. And that's wonderful. I don't need to, oh God, I'll try out that website, I'll go and try. No, with this, it gives me the answer. And for the most part, as a consumer, despite some of those answers not necessarily always being correct, we trust them. We trust them. ChatGPT now is one of the top 10 global websites. A couple of years ago, this company didn't even exist, or this website, OpenAI didn't even exist. And generative traffic is up 1,200, so other sites like that are up over 1,200% in the last 7 months. So the buyer's journey is changing. Before, there was this very linear process. I mean, a lot of people you talk about, oh, it go up and down, or in and out. But really, it was quite linear. We went through awareness, we went through consideration, we went through decision. But that whole piece in the middle is being compressed. It's evaporating. I don't need to go through it right now. I had a bit of a wake-up call about 7 months ago. I had an old friend of mine. I used to work with her. She's the head of digital at a big American security software company. And she rings me. I said, "Oh, Mark, I see you're at Storyblok." Yeah. Hey, Mark, I basically decided to go and put our entire RFP in as a ChatGPT prompt. Oh, brilliant. Why don't I think of that? Normally I'm like one-liner, what's the best this? No, she copied and pasted the entire RFP and put that in as a prompt and said, what's the answer? And she said, oh, Storyblok's came back. And she said, never even heard of Storyblok. And she said, I went through the website, I saw you there. I thought I'd give you a call. And yes, we got chatting. Anyhow, my point here is that the way people are buying is completely changing. So what's important for you to think about? Well, today, there are 2 types of website out there. There's one called a monolith and one called headless. So a monolith website, in very simple terms, tends to produce pages where the content and the page layout and page design is all bundled together within a template. And the problem is, AI search hates those pages. It finds them very difficult to scrape the information out of, and it's very slow to do. And running these big AI engines is incredibly expensive. the compute they use, I mean, you've probably heard about the tens of thousands of gallons of water they use just to cool these places. They're very expensive to run. And so they don't want to wait on your web pages to kind of discern what's happening in your content. In this, what's called headless world, your content is broken down into components. And essentially it's unlocked from this layout. It's called structured content. So think of your content not as content anymore, but as data. And when you think of content in that way, AI search, the machines love it. Because they can basically access it in sub-milliseconds, and they're able to discern it. Oh, that's the title, that's the description. It's very readable by the machine. And so there's going to be a huge shift over the next 2 years in the way that we run our websites. Not to run a website anymore, but to run content such that it can serve the machines as well as humans. Now, content isn't a campaign. Content for you needs to become an operating system. What do I mean by that? Well, essentially, you need to start structuring content in order that you start to have owners for aspects of it. Like, how do we define the brand? Who owns product information? Who owns pricing information? Who owns legal information? Who owns compliance information? And you have to break each of these pieces down. If your website has 5,000 pages today, think about how you can get that down to less than 1,000. Why is this important? Because essentially, those pages that you've got that got published 2 or 3 years ago, with old pricing, old information, those AI engines are finding it and kind of going, oh, I'll take that. I see that as the truth, when it might not be. So get your content teams to produce less content, but higher quality content, higher health content. And stop producing, you don't need to chase clicks anymore. You're chasing to be in answers. So you're chasing trust, not clicks. And that's why content observability is becoming increasingly important. You need to essentially have in place a Google Maps, if you will, of your website and content to understand what is out there, what's on brand, when was it last refreshed, how frequently is it visited, how healthy is your content, and how much content debt do you have. And personalization is going to completely change. I would argue personalization is a topic that's been around for 10 years. It never really took off because the technology was never good enough. But imagine you can start to present content in the way that consumers now appreciate those answers. Personalized web pages with real-time, on-the-fly delivered answers based on the content you have in your trusted content you have in your CMS. That's the future. And this stuff's literally just a few months away now. So let me wrap up, because I think I got told we only have 30 seconds here. My 4 stories today were think about alignment, but think about alignment through defining your ICP. Start to audit your digital marketing stack, but more importantly, your content. For those for the last 20 years, and I did it, we produced tons of content. Tons. In fact, more content was great because that might get us a better SEO placing. The rules of the game have just literally flipped. And now it's less content, remove content, take content away, assure and check that it is robust, reliable, and importantly, has 2 things, trust and authority. Those are the 2 most important things about content today. And as you get out there and you share your brand, get out there with swagger, customers want to buy. Customers love buying from winners. If you're like, oh yeah, we're pretty good, not bad. Customers will literally default to basically the people they perceive as winners. Things like shops like Amazon have taught us this. They've got 5 stars, must be good. And so therefore our minds have been attuned to those kind of things where people say, we are the biggest, we are the best. God, it must be. So as consumers, we've been trained in that way. And as B2B marketers, we have to pursue those same approaches. And get ready to pivot for the AI search era. This is going to happen very quickly. If you are not in a position to have your content well modeled and your website well set up, your brand literally could become invisible in the next 18 months. It's that bad. So do think about those things. There's a real sense of urgency around adapting our digital marketing strategy to support this shift to AI search. So those are my 4 stories for this morning. I really appreciate you coming to take the time to listen to this. If you do have any questions, I would love to take those perhaps at our booth outside, because I think there may be another speaker about to come in here shortly. I'm located on the Storyblok booth, and if you can't get me, I'm sure one of my colleagues will also be able to help you. But otherwise, I really do appreciate your time, and thank you for coming to spend your time with me. Thank you.